poultry farming is a journey of so many steps, but always every journey has a starting point. And here we are starting with chicks up to when you will have your eggs or when your birds will start laying. And as Dr. Wamai shall explain to us later, we need to understand the key tenets of poultry production so that you get return from your investment. Kindly join us.
Thank you, Dr. Much welcome. My name is Dr. Godfrey Wamai. I'm vet by profession, and I work with Atlantis Life Science Limited as a pharmaceutical company. And apart from working with Atlantis Life Science, I am a farmer. I'm a farmer who majorly do poultry farming, and this is a Getuto Poultry Farm. You are much welcome here so that you can see what we do. And this poultry farm is in a place called Camberwa. So karibuni sana. I majorly do layers, layer farming, but I also thinking of venturing into other birds like broilers, but majorly we do layers and more of improved kienyeji. So karibuni sana, and I know we are going to enjoy and learn more when you are in Getuto Poultry Farm. Karibuni sana.
Why did you decide to do poultry farming?
Okay, thank you. That is a very good question. One of the major reasons why I choose poultry is because it's number one, it's less involving. That is number one. Number two is the returns. The returns in poultry. When you invest in poultry, comparing to other livestock, I majorly find there are more returns in poultry. And the other thing is poultry, they are easy to keep and they are easy to manage even when you are not around. So poultry farming, also I have passion for poultry, and that's why I've settled for poultry.
Interesting. Perhaps if we dive heading into the subject matter for today, for someone who desire to run a successful poultry farming project, kindly tell us what are those things that they must include in the preparation or they must have in their mind before they get into that business, because many start and fail at some point. But for you who have done it, perhaps you can tell us what are those things that they must do to make sure that their poultry projects are successful.
Okay, thank you very much. For you to have a very successful poultry farming, there are various things that you must consider and must be a priority. Even before you think of investing in poultry, number one, you must know where these birds are going to stay. So by that I mean you must have a very good structure, because structure plays a very key role in poultry production. And the other thing is, majority of people venture into this business without even knowing what it entails to be in this business. So some will start and then along the way they'll just vanish. But there are various things that you must consider. Even before venturing, you must also ensure that you have the resources, the required resources, because I've seen people start the enterprise without even having a knowledge of like how much it will cost them to lay that bird. So along the way, then the task becomes so big, so they end up giving up. But there are various aspects that you need to consider even before you start. And I've said number one, you must have the right structures, the equipments that you will need. I'll show you some of these equipments that you'll need. But the key thing is structure. So there are various things that you must consider when doing a structure, a poultry structure. And number one, you must ensure that there is good ventilation. Good ventilation means that the air is flowing in and out. Why? Is because poultry droppings will always produce ammonia. Ammonia, if there is an accumulation of ammonia in a poultry house, you'll have so many issues that will come out. One of them, you'll have so many issues with respiratory problems. Because one of the problems major farmers face is diseases, and one of them is the respiratory problems. Respiratory problems, majority of them come because we have very poor ventilation. How do we ensure you have good ventilation? Is by having, constructing your walls well. Number one, you need to check the orientation of also the house. When you are building the house, you have to check the orientation. That means if the sun always rises from east and then sets at the west. So that's how the poultry house should be oriented, east-west direction. That is number one thing when you are building a structure. Number two, you have to factor in the ventilation. Ventilation now, you have to have an open end and some solid part. So for example, if you look at this poultry structure here, you can see from up there to down here is around 9 foot height. So what you do then, you do like 4 feet solid. You can do like myself, I've done 2 courses of stones and an iron sheet, and then the remaining part I leave it open. So both sides, the wrong sides, this side and the other side, you can clearly see how the air is flowing. Even here, you can feel you are enjoying the air inside here, because if you have a compromised ventilation, you'll have so many issues, and that is the start of problems. The other thing that you need to consider even when you are building a structure is the spacing. These birds require spacing because if you have, if the birds congest, you'll have issues with production, you'll have issues with cannibalism, especially in layers, you'll have issues with pecking. So you have to ensure that you have the right space. So for layers, usually we recommend 2 square foot per bird. So that is, if you want to keep like 100 birds, then you need to have like a 200 square foot, so that the birds will have enough space to enjoy themselves, and even to have spaces for even laying. So you have to ensure also the walls are good height. The floor is always advisable to have it cemented for easy cleaning and disinfection, because this is where majority of diseases hide. So you have to ensure that you have very nice floor so that you can do proper cleaning and disinfection. So because that is where you will start. Because I've said one of the major threats in poultry production, be it broilers, be it layers, be it improved, be it kienyeji or the indigenous, is diseases. So you have to ensure that all areas that diseases can come in, you cross that door. And that's where we call it a biosecurity. You have to ensure that diseases does not come from outside into your poultry farm. The other thing also, if you look at the walls, on my walls, you can see I have put a chick wire and a mesh wire. There is a reason behind that, because we don't want our birds to interact with the wild birds. Because if you leave it open, the wild birds will be feeding together with the domestic birds. And those are carriers for diseases. So they will be bringing diseases into the poultry houses. I've seen so many farmers mess up. I've seen so many farmers entertaining birds feeding together with the poultry, and that's where the thing starts going wrong. So those are some of the areas that you need to ensure that you have a very nice structure, because that is the starting point. Structure is the starting point. Yes.
Right. Now that you have explained to us how a structure should be and the most important details to include, perhaps in our protocol or in our bag for a successful poultry enterprise, apart from housing, what other factors should a potential investor consider to make sure that they are able to get it right as they get into this business?
Thank you. We have said the structure, that is number one. Number two, you have to make sure the nutrition is well, because birds, they will have to eat. And for you to get production, any form of production, they have to have well-balanced, well-formulated feeds. So feed is also another key factor that you need to consider. The other thing I've said you have to consider is the diseases, because diseases can mess you up. The other thing that you need also to consider when you are doing poultry farming is the breed, because you have to get your chicks from reputable sources where they are disease-free, so that when you bring them, they don't bring diseases. Because if you buy chicks that are not to the standards, then you start going wrong. So where you source your chicks is very important, and the breed that you keep is very important. Yes.